So just a little disclaimer thing. In the Woody Needs a Buff video, I did say that the video wasn't talking about a buff necessarily, but rather a rework so that Woody can fare against Maxwell. The same, or at least similar, goes for this video, where instead of talking about Winona needing a buff, per se, I will talk about how Winona needs a rework to make her a more interesting character, due to her current blandness. Also note that this video is opinion based obviously, so yada yada, don't comment about my opinion being inferior to yours or whatever. Winona is a character who, like a couple of others, is constantly complained about due to her blandness and her inability to bring anything new to the character table. And yes, forum and Reddit goers, I am fully aware that the buffing or reworking of characters such as those that I have discussed has been brought up numerous times before. These videos, however, are the first videos to discuss the matter. Anyway, the main reason that Winona is mentioned is because unlike others, such as Woody and Willow, she was added into Don't Starve Together like she is now. There is no OG Winona, no good old days Winona, and certainly no single player Winona mods. Which means that we can't exactly restore Winona to her former glory, because such a glory is non-existent. So in this video I will talk about Winona's current state and what she could be made into. Character design and not gameplay wise, Winona is actually really high among my favourite characters. Her lines of dialogue are pretty cool, some of the best in the game in my opinion. Her aesthetic and skins are really well done, and most of all, she plays an incredibly important role in the game's lore. She is sister to Charlie, the guru that stalks and kills you in the nighttime, and who is currently sitting on the Nightmare throne. She also, according to evidence extracted from her quotes, worked at the factory that produced the Voxola PR76 radios, at least one of which Maxwell used to tempt Wilson into the Don't Starve world, as we see in the Forbidden Knowledge cinematic. But that's all for a different video, because today we're talking about Winona gameplay-wise. Winona's special perks are that she starts with and can craft trusty tape, which is basically a budget sewing kit. It's crafted with 3 cut grass and 1 silk, which is pretty cheap early on in the game. Winona also gets 1 free hit from Charlie in the darkness, meaning that Charlie's first attack deals no health or sanity damage. This is reset by going into light for any duration of time. Winona also crafts and builds things in half the time as any other character. And that's it. Yeah, there's nothing else. Only these 3 underwhelming perks make up this potentially amazing character. Additionally, as you may have noticed, Winona has no downsides. This means that yes, she isn't a bad character, just bland to play as. The lack of a downside is also partially the reason why Winona is quite uninteresting. Other characters' downsides change the way that you play the game, which is what you, as the player, expect from a different character. Because in her current state, Winona is essentially a slightly different Wilson, except unlike Wilson, she doesn't have a niche use, Wilson's being surviving winter easier as a tool for the newer players. Winona's perks are also sort of random. Her trusty tape is useful early game, yeah, but later on, the more efficient and powerful sewing kits take over. Her faster building is pretty lame and only useful if you're building a mega base or crafting a lot of things at once. And her free darkness hit is incredibly trivial, with no real use except going insane faster. Winona is constantly referred to as having a love for all things mechanical or likewise, even though none of her perks really reflect this. Therefore, there is a massive amount of potential for a perk that a mechanic/factory worker could have. Here are some ideas that I've gathered from forum posts and my own head. Winona would get a reduction in crafting materials, similar to the construction amulet, but based on one of her stats. This means that if said stat is low, she would require more materials or craft slower. I quite like this idea, but I don't think that it would work well with sanity, because that means the only reason to really be sane is to satisfy one character's specific perk. So I think that it could be based off health, hunger, or a mixture of both. Winona would be able to hack or control clockwork monsters in some way. Her quotes show her as having somewhat of a fascination with them, so wouldn't it make sense and be interesting if she could harness them? Hopefully this would be different to repairing damaged clockworks in the ruins. Possibly Winona could build some sort of character-exclusive hacking station, and then remotely control them, but losing control of herself, leaving her vulnerable to natural dangers. That'd be cool. You can use it for distracting bosses in emergencies, extra firepower during boss fights or hound attacks, or just for easily farming food. Winona's trusty tape would be able to repair things like armor and tools, to differentiate it from sewing kits. While this could definitely make Winona more viable as a character and much more powerful, it wouldn't add anything gameplay-wise, leaving Winona still bland to players. Also, if this worked on ruins items like staves and amulets, it would be absolutely broken, so let's just leave that out of the equation. Adding a downside that has something to do with an inability or limited ability within the use of magic items. This would be pretty detrimental late game when fooling around with dark magic is a higher priority task, which means that there'd have to be some sort of compensation to do with limited magical ability. Possibly a compensation to do with increased non-magic ability, as in more power with tools in trade-off for magic ability. Do something so that her faster building and free darkness hit perks aren't treated as main perks and basically the selling point for the character as they are now, being displayed in her character description and all. They aren't bad perks necessarily, but could probably be worked out into something better. Winona would be able to make some sort of automation structures that would automate things like farming, harvesting, and growing. I don't know, this one's pretty out there, but wouldn't it be cool to have like late game machines that do menial tasks for you? It makes sense, alluding to her past as a factory worker, and would be something really cool to mess around with mid to late game. The automation structures would probably need late game materials to craft and maintain. Having something like this restricted to a single character is pretty one-sided, so maybe Winona would be able to build the crafting station herself, and then other characters could utilize it to create the actual structures? Anyway, yeah, that's the end of the video. So if you have an idea for a Winona perk, as per usual, just put it down in the comments section, and I guess I'll see you next time.